Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Gooner podcast. I'm going to be hosting it, so I am Daily Gooner Sam. Today we've got two of the boys. Jacob, how are we doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Always a pleasure to be here.
Good. MJ, welcome back, sir.
Very good. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Well, boys, it's been a bit of an eventful one. But if I can take you back to Friday, Man City, 6 changes. On the whole, I'd say more positives than negatives of a 1-0 loss, but I'm going to throw it out to you, boys. As a game as a whole, thoughts and opinions?
I've only had to watch kind of extensive highlights on this one, unfortunately. I was occupied with work, but everything I've looked at, I mean, it was a good performance with a rotated squad, which isn't something we are normally saying. We're normally saying the rotation really drops a level, and on this occasion, it didn't. There was a lot of consistency in the performance. Trossard particularly was lively. He's looking like he's going to fit in very fast. And even some of the ones that previously you'd have looked at and gone, nah, you're not doing the job for us. Because they're now surrounded by better players, even in a rotated squad, it seems to kind of protect them and give them more of a platform to perform. So that's about as big a positive as you can take because, we've talked about it several times. We're going to need more rotation in the second half of this season. Probably not, hopefully not 6 changes, but if these players can come in and perform to a good level alongside the good players, then that is definitely reason for optimism in my books.
Yeah, I'm the same. I actually came out of the game feeling. So I watched the whole game, and I came out of it feeling more. I actually felt more confident that we could take City in the league. Far more confident with even with half the changes that we had. It was a bit of a weird lineup. It was kind of like don't want to risk everyone, but I don't want to lose to Pep kind of game. It was one of those sort of weird mindsets. I was thinking maybe we go strong and then try and get a psychological edge. But I kind of feel like we may have done quite well to get that anyway with the 6 changes, because then what could we do with a strong team? But in a way, it could be a blessing in disguise. It's an extra game for City. We're out of it, more focused on the league. We'll come onto the Europa League when we do get to those stages eventually. But overall, quite a good performance from ourselves, especially with the boys that don't typically play all the time. Turner did all right. I think he had a couple of dodgy moments, but he got confident and eventually found his feet, and some of his distribution was okay. I think Rob Holding himself at the start, a couple of weird moments, but I think overall he did all right. But even with the changes, we seemed to handle City. They only had one change, I think, and it was just a goalkeeper. So that was kind of it, really. So overall, quite happy. I'm even more confident going into the league games, especially the home game and the away game as well. I can't remember when the away game is, but yeah, pretty confident overall, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I just want to echo what you boys are saying. Obviously, saying 6 changes. Before the game, I was like, are we kind of throwing this before even trying? But fair play to the boys that come in. I think that given how they done and how, do you know what? I was quite surprised how poor City were. Realistically, like I thought they would be a bit more, try to be a bit more dominant, but then we saw our dominance coming into play, and I think that we really put them onto the back foot for large parts of that game. But I think, given the fact that we made 6 changes, put the first team players in there, that gave me a real optimism for the future games, and I think, given how the league's poised, and I think when have we got City in 3 games time? I think it is 2-3 games. Um, if we can beat City then, and obviously win the other games, that puts us in a really commanding position coming to middle of Feb. And then realistically, you've got what, Europa League starting in March for us. I think really you've got to then start looking at Europa League, depending on who we get, and say, okay, we are where we are in the league. Do we then prioritise the league, or do we start putting out the second string for the Europa League? But that is a question I will actually come back to, because that does actually lead us on to, as today is transfer deadline day. It's been a bit of a weird one, this transfer window for Arsenal, but we've made new signing today, so happy Jorginho Day for some people, some not so much. But yeah, Jorginho, we're all well versed with him being in the Premier League, obviously with London derbies, with Chelsea. I get he's one of these players that if he's not in your team, you don't like him, but if he's in your team, you kind of love him, and that's the kind of vibe that I've been getting off some Chelsea fans. I think, given his qualities as somebody that can hold the ball, have that retention, he's somebody that dictates Chelsea play for a number of years. How do you boys see him fitting into this Arsenal side, or does he make the starting 11, or is he somebody to come on late in games?
I'm gonna start off a bit pessimistic here. I don't think he fits into the squad. Now there's several reasons for that. Like, I'm not saying Jorginho is an outright bad player. There are clearly good attributes to him, but I see him. He's obviously not the exact same player, but he's almost Xhaka-like in that he's got a good technical level, but lacks a lot of the mobility and physical attributes that we require. I can't say words now. It's almost like, although they do play a different role, if Jorginho was the Xhaka rotation, I wouldn't be as wary of the deal, because you're highlighting that role highlights technical qualities rather than the physical ones. But as the backup to Partey, you need both. And unfortunately, I just really see Jorginho struggling to control that midfield and break up things in the same way. Now, obviously, he has good passing, good range, good vision. I'm not going to sit here and say there's no good benefits to this deal. There clearly are. I just struggle to see him in that role in this system, and that's what gives me a lot of cause for concern.
Stylistically, you're going from that. This is the bit that I was sort of struggling with earlier. We went from possibly Caicedo to Onana to Jorginho. It's kind of like, okay, how is that really going to fit? I think the idea might be that we can't get a cover that can replicate Partey, but maybe 2 or 3 things that Partey does. And what's that? The passing, the over the top, the diagonals, the angles towards Saka or maybe Martinelli or Odegaard. I've been spending a few hours trying to see the positives to this. There's definitely positives, I think, but it's just really hard to sort of see through the jungle of noise that's come out. And I think the encouragement that I sort of get is I've sort of waited to see the reaction from rival fans and then the professionals and the pundits. So your Carragher's, your Paul Mersons, you've probably seen these. Who else? Still someone else, but they all seem to think this is a pretty good signing. And they're looking from the outside in to our progress, to us as a team. So they seem to see it from a good signing, I guess, from his experience point of view. They're probably not as tuned into our system, but they see it as some sort of experience signing. I guess they're coming from that angle, whereas we're trying to figure out the sort of the cogs of where Jorginho will come in. And I guess it will be where Partey is playing at the moment. Even like the content creators out there, your Roaring Jennings and Lawrence McKenna, they seem to think it's a positive signing. So I'm only getting encouragement from that. we probably won't know till, I don't know, 4 or 5 games in, where we'll see where he's playing, whether it's next to Partey or next to Xhaka or whatever. But we can only hope that it's going to go well.
But just to pick up on that point, in terms of we don't know where he's going to play, does it not bode well for us, given that Xhaka's played pretty much every game this season, that it enables him to have a bit of a rest? It also enables Partey to have a rest in games if and when needed, and that we're able to rotate in that aspect and give key players a rest at various points in the season, because realistically, we know Thomas Partey has got the ability to break down in the season, and touching wood, that doesn't happen. But it's happened previously at crucial points. So having Jorginho come in, somebody who's experienced, somebody who's won titles, not both at a domestic level, but also as a international player, surely having somebody in that mould benefits this young side.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what a squad player does. They will fill in the gaps as and when is needed, and that's why we have a lot of versatility in some of the signings we've made. You know, you look at Vieira can play centrally or on the wing, Jesus centrally or on the wing. Like, there is a lot of versatility in the signings that we've made, and Jorginho kind of adds that. In that, yes, he can play in 2 different midfield positions. But I think the worry is, if we're looking at him as the main Partey backup, I just worry about his ability to fulfill that role over a period of, 6, 7, even 8 or 9 games without Partey being available, which, again, we don't want to happen, but everyone is worried about it because he does miss games. He is probably going to miss some games this season. And for those who haven't seen yet, I had a bit of a chat earlier with Daniel, or Son of Chelsea, also known as, and he talked as well. Jorginho's best time for Chelsea has come when he's partnered next to Kante. Kante had the legs, the energy, and let Jorginho do the technical stuff. Now, again, that reminds me very much of Xhaka's best partnership has come with Thomas Partey, because Thomas Partey does the legs and all that and lets Xhaka do the technical stuff. So if we're pairing Xhaka and Jorginho together, who's doing the legs? And that's what really concerns me about that possible pairing. So, as I said earlier, if Jorginho is backing up Xhaka, I actually think that's an incredible bit of business. If Jorginho is backing up Partey, I just really struggle to see the effect it's going to have on the squad and the balance as a whole. I just really struggle to see.
I think it might come down to, I can't remember who said it today, but they were saying how positionally he's quite aware, and the way that we suffocate teams and the way we're playing is coming down to position understanding. So we may not need to find that Kante next to him, but maybe we do it through the way that we've done at Zohar, which is just overloading with your Zinchenkos, your Whites, your Odegaards, and also the 2 centre-backs playing higher up. Maybe he benefits that way, so he's not having to exert so much physical energy, or someone else is having to cover for him. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of how I tried to sort of theorize it. Maybe that's how we could replicate him without him having to find a Kante or someone. I don't know. Maybe that could be one way to go down. But I don't expect him to start a game anytime soon. I don't know what we've got. We've got loads of league games coming up. So, yeah, it could come down in that sort of role for him.
I just want to throw some stats at you, ones that we've probably seen earlier on today. It's a player
Sports ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So Thomas Partey, and these are 2022, 2023 all stats per 90 minutes. Thomas Partey, 2.32 total tackles. Jorginho, 2.95. Interceptions, Thomas Partey, 1.23 compared to Jorginho's 1.48. All recoveries, Partey, 8.01. Jorginho, 8.36. Pass completed, Partey, 58.24, whereas Jorginho is 52.48. And then forward passing percentage, Partey, 28.98, and Jorginho, 30.97. Now, given them comparisons, they're quite close in stature. Obviously, that doesn't give you the marker as the athleticism, but as MJ pointed out earlier, the way that we do, sorry, I think it was MJ, one of you, pointed out, we do like to suffocate teams. Given the data's very close to each other, I think that it's a benefit signing for us, essentially. I think that it is not one that Arsenal fans wanted to see because we were shopping in Chelsea's geriatric centre yet again. But given the stats and given how close they are in comparison to each other, from a data point of view, it makes sense. Well, at least it does to the club because obviously they've signed him, and then to me, I think that it kind of does. But the one thing that I'm worried about is that we don't have 100% control of most games. And I think it's that transition that we're going to be losing there if Partey's not playing. Because ultimately, we know as teams like to break, we get the go gadget leg come out from Partey, and then we're back on the front foot. Can we see Jorginho doing that, given the amount of challenges that he makes per 90? And as MJ said, positionally, he's quite aware of where he should be on that pitch. So, although his speed's a bit of an issue, and his legs is a bit of an issue, do we believe that he's smart enough to adapt his game to our system to then know where he needs to be at any God-given point?
I mean,
sorry, Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, is he smart enough? Yeah, he is a clever player. I don't think he's going to be a total disaster. But there are moments that he just cannot replicate. As you said, we don't control every game all the time. You look at that moment where Partey, ran back past the defenders and made the tackle the other week. They are key moments in games that, if they don't happen, can flip a game on its head. And that's not something Jorginho is going to be able to replicate. Now, in the moments that we are just suffocating teams and all that, then yeah, he will look good for us, and he will keep ball retention. He's not going to really lose it. He'll keep the forward passing going because, he isn't a player who keeps ball retention by just passing backwards and sideways. He does go forward a lot, and that is something that's going to be beneficial to us. Yeah. So, can he adapt this game? In 70-75% of games, yeah, probably can. But there is just going to be that, bit of a percent of games where he is going to show what he can't do in comparison to Partey. He is going to show his legs. And that is something we're going to have to deal with. Now, ultimately, if he stays as a squad player and a rotation player, it's not going to matter. He's not going to be involved enough for that sort of bad process to happen and cost us in him too much. It's just if he is playing that starting six for, good few weeks where, and if Partey's out, gets a 6-week injury, what's that going to be second half of the season? You're looking at 9-10 games. And I think in that period of run is where you would really notice the difference. So ultimately, I think it depends on how much we have to use him, on how good a signing he's going to look. Great squad player, very doubtful as a starting six.
Yeah, and I think he knows that as well. He knows he probably won't be starting anytime soon. And the examples that Jake just said there, where Anthony was going down the right and Partey just went afterburners down to that channel, which, by the way, I didn't know he had that in his locker. I don't know how he's never shown that before. But it's things like that. It's like moments like that. Or the other example was in the Spurs game in the first half, where I think you might recall where we might have lost possession in the first half. Partey wins it back instantly. Xhaka's recycled it, and he wins the foul. And then you see them both sort of high-fiving each other because they did well to recycle the ball back towards our favour after losing it. So it's like these moments where how would Jorginho deal with that? And that's kind of where I guess the concern is, because we've definitely seen games where in a Chelsea shirt, he's kind of there has been times where he's been dribbled past quite easily or exposed, but we've also seen Granit Xhaka exposed, but we fixed that with our system, I guess, and him getting leaner and more fitter to deal with that role. What was I going to say? I've totally lost what I was going to say. Yeah, it's things like that. Without the ball, we don't know what he's going to do. I think on the ball, he has more benefits, but yeah, he's going to be a good second half sub, though. I think he'd be one of those really useful subs to control the pace of the game. And I reckon he would be quite useful in adding more pressure. So if we are chasing goals, he's probably the kind of guy you want starting attacks. But his best days were a long time ago. I think they were saying it's been a year since he's had good performances or good run of performances. But I guess that's a correlation with where Chelsea are at the moment, like with their team being a bit of a mess.
When I spoke to Daniel Charles earlier, he said his gig up at Chelsea was really 2 years ago. That's when they started to notice a decline. But again, that's when Kante started getting injury sort of thing. And I think it just shows that correlation of where Jorginho's strengths and weaknesses are. It's not coming as a surprise, but it is something we have to be very wary of. And, maybe our perception as fans is wrong. Maybe he is coming in to be more of a Xhaka rotation, although looking at it from the outside in, given Sambi's gone now and then he's injured, you can only think he's a 6 replacement.
Just a real quick question. Last one about Jorginho, and then we'll move on to some of the outgoings of today. Do we think Jorginho just needs a change of scenery, so to speak, to reinvigorate that player? Did he get too comfortable at Chelsea?
I reckon he was probably lining up an Italian move, which I think that is the rumored stuff, isn't it? He was probably looking to go back to Italy. And then maybe it might have been like a Juventus or something, and he's seen Juventus are going through a bit of a mess. And then we sort of came along, said, look, join us for 6 months. Not even 6 months, join us for a year and a bit. You might win a title, may not. Nice, decent contract for him, still in London, kids, family, whatever. And it seems, I haven't seen his interview yet, but just from the initial reaction and the photos, you can tell a lot from someone's smile thing. If you compare to Mudryk's smile for Chelsea, he seems quite happy to be here.
What smile?
Yeah, he seems pretty. Hopefully, that's a bit of a sign that he's quite happy to be here. It seems like him and Arteta are quite chummy. If you've seen the 2020 video of them two hugging at the end of the game. So I reckon, new challenge for him. Good for Chelsea to get him off. It was interesting to see the reactions from their sort of threads and forums where they were kind of preferably not going to try to sell him to us. So let's hope this is the best Chelsea that we've made out of all of them.
Yeah, for me, I'm not sure on the change of scenery, because if there's one thing I'll give Jorginho, he's a professional. I don't think being at Chelsea, even amongst all the turmoil and everything that's going on there, it would have led to a drop in performances. I do think he's too much of a professional for that. He's always kept himself fit and healthy. Like, I don't know his injury record, but I can't ever think of him not really being in a Chelsea squad. I think he's obviously looked after himself. He's always available, which is obviously a plus. We need players who are available. So yeah, I'm not sure the change of scenery reinvigorates him. I do agree that obviously he does look happy to be here. I mean, what player wouldn't? But
Yeah.
he's jumped to the top of the league. But yeah, I do think he's happy to be here, which is always going to be a plus. We've not, this isn't a player we've convinced to come or anything like that. This is a player who's been given an opportunity and gone, yeah, all right. And we've had it before. Players at that age like some security. Now, we've given Chelsea reject security before and it's not worked out. So, but I think in general, the club have learned from the mistakes of giving these long contracts to players of a certain age, which, Jorginho is 31. And we've offered him an 18-month deal, which to me, regardless of what Jorginho does for us, is a positive sign for the club as a whole. We're no longer giving out big contracts and then having to deal with it later. This is one that, even if it is a total disaster, we'll have one full season with him. We'll have the rest of this season, which, we need bodies, however that goes. And then one full season with him, which, even if he's on, good wages, I did see rumour earlier that he's going to be our third highest paid player, which is somewhat understandable with the career he's had, and he is at the older end of the age, and they've built up wages. So I'm not going to get too hung up on that. But even if he's on high wages and he's not works out, we can just let him go again. So regardless of how well Jorginho does, I think that is a massive kind of almost statement from the club that say, we've learned our lessons. Don't judge us on what happened with the previous ones. We're showing you now that we can sign these players and not leave ourselves in a mess.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I think as well, just having a check over his injury record. In all of his career, he's missed 17 days worth of action.
That's why I thought he was always available then.
Yeah. Just looking at it when he was, I can't even recognise that team badge, but in 13-14, he had a fever, he missed 3 days. In 14-15, he had muscle fatigue, missed 7 days, 2 games with Napoli. And in 2021-22, he had an unknown injury, 7 days, 2 games with Chelsea. So that's amazing for someone that's had the longevity of what he has.
So out for the rest of the season with us.
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me. The old Arsenal curse will probably strike at some point.
Just add a club to that list.
Yeah, yeah. Get the badge on. Right, so moving along. Looking at outgoing, Sambi Lokonga, player that's had a difficult year at Arsenal. Really, was captured in the All or Nothing. Moaning about his playing time there, where Eddie Nketiah turned around and said, "Well, at least you're getting onto the pitch. Look at me, I'm not even stepping foot on," which was a very valid point at that time. But it seems to me Sambi Lokonga come in with a lot of hype around him. Vincent Kompany recommending him very highly. Henry saying this kid's going to be amazing. Comes to Arsenal, hasn't really set the world alight. For a guy that's now 23, should he be taking charge of his career? As the first part of the second question. Second part, should he realistically be a starter somewhere?
Yeah, well, me and MJ actually had a bit of a chat about this the other day, kind of in the wake of the City game. And yeah, I do think Lokonga has had a hard time of it. Now, I think there's a couple of factors to it. He has come from being a very young captain for, quite a big European club, really. Obviously not the biggest, but a decent sized club, captain at his age, all these recommendations. Mentally, that's probably quite hard. Even if logically you told yourself when you're making a signing, yeah, I'm probably not going to be a regular starter at Arsenal just yet. To go from that, you're a guaranteed starter, you're captain, to, struggling to get games, which actually when he first came in, he got a good run of games straight away. Necessity dictated it. But so he's got mentally, that's probably quite hard to deal with and to readjust. And also now when he is given the chance, it certainly feels to me, other than a couple of games, like the Oxford one, he always plays in big games. You see him against Liverpool, City, United. Like, for whatever reason, he seems to be coming into those games. So to just come in cold, replace probably our most important player in the team, and be expected to perform to the same level, I think is quite unrealistic for fans as well. Now, obviously, there are moments I think Sambi can do better, and he certainly needs this loan deal and get some minutes and to kind of reevaluate where he's going and where he's at. But yeah, I do think sometimes we've been a bit harsh on him, not always looked at the full story. We've seen him have a bit of bad positioning against City, or a loose pass against Liverpool, and against United, we saw Thomas Partey making loose passes, and yeah, there was a few mentions of it, but no one, jumps on his back, because Partey has also got a long record of being exceptional for the team, which Lokonga hasn't built up, hasn't had much of a chance to build it up. So yeah, I think he should be a starter somewhere right now in this career. Be interesting to see where he fits in at Palace. Obviously, great to see him under Vieira. One of Arsenal's great midfielders working with him, can show him, like, if you want to be an Arsenal midfielder, this is what you've got to do. But I don't think he immediately breaks into this Palace side right now.
Yeah, I hope the loan does work out for him. He's at a pretty the age of regular games. It's getting younger and younger now. It's by 24, you're probably trying to be, or at least getting a good run of games. So probably needs to be getting that somewhere. It's different for everyone, but he's probably going to a pretty good setup with Vieira. And he has been pretty unlucky. And yeah, as Jake was saying, we've chatted about this a couple of times. And I think even for his own progression, maybe his plans to be an 8 were probably set back with the El Neni injuries. So he's been demoted back to the 6 and whatever. Yeah, he needs the loan, get his confidence and his love back for the game, I guess. I kind of feel like the Oxford game was kind of the nail in the coffin for Mikel Arteta. He was playing in a higher up position, higher up in position, weaker opposition. Maybe he could show something there. He didn't even have a bad game, but it was kind of like just wanted to see a little bit more. I don't know. I hope he gets some games. I don't know what the state of Palace's midfield is at the moment, and what if they were looking for a midfielder. I will say, probably from a sort of a selfish point of view, it is Jorginho coming in, and this is where I guess where the benefit of Jorginho comes in is if Partey went off with a rib injury and Jorginho was coming on, I'd probably have a bit more confidence with Jorginho in the position than Sambi at the moment. And that's not really a fault of Sambi. It's just kind of where he is at his stage. But I'd feel more assured with Jorginho coming on as a sub in the second half or whatever niggle Partey picks up. And I guess that's just where the experience comes in. That's probably where a point turns into 3 or a loss becomes a point because of the difference between who we've brought on. So maybe that's the lessons that the club have learned from. I guess it's still talking about Jorginho, but I guess that's the lesson from last January. But for Zambia's purpose, yeah, I hope he get some game time, and then we'll see if we bring him back as a better player or sell for profit.
Yeah, so for me, I think Zambi has got the ability to be a top class player. I question his desire sometimes, but if he's going to Palace, that's more of a team that's got hard running, and that's one aspect that I think that Zambi actually lacks in his game is the hard running, because so many times I feel that he's got the ability to get up and down in that box to box, but coming backwards, you get the Ozil jogs, the jogs that break down into a walk. And it's just like you need to do a bit more than that, mate. And I think in that Palace side, Vieira is going to be demanding that he puts in that hard graft coming back as well. Because just looking at Palace's last lineup, according to this app, it was a 4-2-3-1. They ended up playing Doucouré and Jeffrey Sloop as the two holding midfielders. So for me, if Palace signing him, that's to get him in as that second midfielder. Now, Doucouré is a bit of an all action. I think that Vieira might actually say to Zambi, okay, I want you to be our deep line playmaker. So we know Zambi is very good at progressing the ball. Hypothetically, if he's then asked to be the ball playing midfielder, how do you think that elevates Palace? Just to divert away from Arsenal very quickly.
That's a good way to go with it. If they're doing a pivot, then they've got the protection of each other. I've not really watched too many Palace games and their style of play, but I know, was Conor Gallagher, was he under Vieira last season?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a track record there for Vieira that he does get an all right level of performance, but with Conor Gallagher, it was really good. So maybe there's some confidence there that Vieira can get something out of Zambi, but in a pivot, it may suit his game if you've got that all-action guy next to him, and then he's the sort of the passive type. Maybe he will never be that action type himself, but he's got the physical qualities to assert himself. So maybe if someone else is doing the legwork, he'll be the yin and yang of that pivot. Yeah, it could work out really well for him. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a pivot at this stage of his career suiting him perfectly. Obviously, we know how tough a role that lone 6 is. It's why we've struggled to get backups and rotations. It is not an easy role, and I think we've said before that is a role that you probably need an experienced player in. Talking myself into Jorginho here. Yeah, but it's not an easy role. So obviously, back in the summer, we acknowledged it was a hard role, and actually, certainly for the short term, developing as an 8 might be beneficial to him. Just learning more about the game before that tactical positional awareness might develop later at 28. And then he got shoved straight back to 6, as MJ said. So a double pivot, you kind of learn, obviously not a specialist in either, but you learn both sides of the game. You have to learn to set and break up play as well as get forward. So I think as an all-round development, it's a really good move for him. And I really like what Zambi could become. Like I said earlier this morning, that I actually think on paper, Lokonga is more of a tactical fit than Jorginho is. and I'll stand by that. But clearly, it's not working out for Sambi right this moment. So, I'm torn on the move because I think it's a great move for him. Like, I think it benefits both clubs and the player. But I also feel letting him go leaves us short in midfield again.
That is a good point, actually. Another departure that's rumoured, been rumoured all the way through the window, is Cedric at right back. Now, when Cedric first came in, I was a bit perplexed as to why, especially when we turned that permanent. But I believe that was during the dodgy rail era. So I'll chalk that one down to agents. But Cedric off to Fulham. I think that's quite an interesting one because I think over his Arsenal career, I think his good and bad moments probably about way up the same currently. And with Cedric, he's never really been one that fits that Arsenal mould. He's always had that, I don't know, always had that mistake in him one way or another. I think somebody asked the other day what was in the group chat that we're in, what was Cedric's best moment in an Arsenal shirt, and somebody said,
me,
yeah, yourself, about the rolling headbutt arms all on the line against United, and I think that probably is his best moment as an Arsenal player, but especially getting away with that when it was so blatant. But does that not then leave us short at right back? Probably not. But also, I think, are we just essentially what I'm getting at? Are we just kicking the can down the road for another 6 months because he's potentially going to be back? Same situation.
I mean, yeah, that's the potential. But right now, he's a player that's not playing. Is one of his most memorable last moments was giving away a penalty to Tottenham in our most important game of the season. It's hard to see a market for him right now, and right back isn't a position that a lot of teams are obviously weak in right now. It just seems to be a strength of the league. Like, you look at so many teams and go, yeah, great right back. So for Cedric to find that move, and I think he wants to stay in England. I think he's made that clear before. So it might be kicking it down the road, but for now we've got some hefty wages off of our books. He's not really playing anyway. And should we come to using our third choice right back, I'd rather just, let a youngster have a crack or come up with something creative than play Cedric anyway. But if he goes and does well, then maybe he creates his own market. So actually, in 6 months' time, we're getting, 5 to 10 mil for him, which should be great. But he always felt from the moment he was signed, although he comes down as an Arteta signing, he always feels like one of the last of the kind of Emery and Raul era, kind of like how Mari was. It was almost like they were in their minds, these are the type of players we're going to get. And Arteta hadn't had any chance to implement anything else when he came in at that point.
Yeah, I think some of those signings back then, they were kind of like, yeah, it kind of makes sense for now, doesn't it? And then I'm sure once we get our stuff together, we'll make better signings. Yeah, I think he also wanted game time, so maybe he was initiating the move himself, hoping something comes in. This Fulham thing dragged on for ages, so glad to see it probably done now. I think in terms of the shortness and I think now we've got 2 in every position, so I guess that's kind of the baseline, and then a bonus would be whoever's left around. So I guess who's the third? So Emil Smith-Rowe is probably the third in, say, Xhaka's position. Would it be the third, second or third, possibly?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get Cedric out, kind of build the new players in, and yeah, we'll see what happens. It will definitely not come back, I don't think.
No, I was just looking at Fulham's position. They're currently seventh in the league. Played a game more than Brentford, two more than Liverpool, but on 31 points, they're in for a shout of Europe. If they were to get, say, Europa Conference or Europa League, I would highly suspect that Cedric would probably stay there and do that. Because I think that is, given his age, I reckon that's going down to his type of level where he's at. But yeah, good luck to him. Has that been announced yet, or is it still dragging on? Probably be a deal sheet after the deadline, to be honest. But yeah, good luck for him if it works out for him. I think finally on the transfer deadlines, unless something crops up within the next 15 minutes or so. Overall, boys, how would you rate our window? I think for me, we've done quite well in terms of adding a centre back. We're saying that we need Gabriel to have a break and have someone to challenge him, because we know that Rob Holding isn't that guy. Although Rob does a lot of the behind the scenes work with the squad, with the manager and things like that. Kiwa coming in, interesting player. One that we've yet to see, but going by reports and the data that was coming out, is that he's the next big ball playing midfielder out of Serie A. And then also with Jacob, you touched on Trossard earlier, and obviously we've spoken about Jorginho in length. So with them three players adding depth to the squad, how would you say this window's gone for us?
Go on, Jake.
Actually, before I get to that, I think since you're on departures, Marquinhos obviously went on loan to Norwich today. Interesting one again, because he definitely needs the loan, hasn't been getting the minutes, but he was the obvious Saka replacement, like most natural position, maybe not obviously the highest profile player, but I do find that a bit of an interesting one. So yeah, a little bit like Zambi, definitely needed it, but from the club's perspective of just having players available, particularly with Europa League coming back, bit of a surprise or not so much?
You've got to think as well, though. You've got Nelson stepping up his recovery to come back. So then maybe that was the thinking behind it. But obviously he's not had the best run of fitness recently.
Yeah, and he would have been a really good option, actually, because he was picking up form. He seemed to be in a really good place, and then breaks down. I can't remember what game was it, after Brighton League Cup or one of those games. Yeah, the Marquinhos, especially him. I hope he does well with Norwich. Seems like the manager is from the Brazilian league. I think I read somewhere, so I think there's a connection there for him to feel some good stuff around the environment there. In the window, with my objective head, I know I asked the question earlier. I guess it is we've learned our lesson from last Jan. So the thing that could have got us top four, we didn't do, but we still don't know, or we won't know until May, whether the free signings we've made in this window will get us the title. I'm sure that's probably their thinking now. We've got an opportunity to go for the title, so we'll know in May. It's not supposed to guarantee the title, but it improves our chances to go to the end, maybe 5 extra points somewhere. I don't know. I think because of the unfolding of the events going towards the end of the window, it seems a bit underwhelming. But objectively, we've covered some areas. We've got some solutions that could probably work for now. And then the other side of it is our summer spending is unaffected. I think the reports that were coming out were saying that our summer spending wouldn't be affected with or without Caicedo, but it's probably even stronger now, barring any last minute drama. But yeah, I'd give it a good 7 out of 10. I think I think they are fine. Trossard has surprised me. I didn't realise how good he was with the ball dribbling. So I think that's something to be excited by. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of Trossard.
Yeah, in the chat earlier, I think I said a 6.5. I am gonna up that to 7. I think my disappointment with the Jorginho deal kind of clouded the whole window. We've gone out on the whole. We knew we needed a winger. We very really needed a centre midfielder. I wasn't convinced we were going to go for one. And we all said as well we needed that left centre back, although we were quite prepared to kind of put it off till summer. It wasn't the priority of this window. However, we filled the majority of the squad gaps. There is a glaringly obvious one for me at right wing, which is why it surprised me all our targets were left wing with Smith Rowe coming back. But, that's what the club decided. That's where they decided their targets were needed in this window with the players that were available. So, absolutely fine with that. And Trossard, he looks really exciting. And I think we could all see the logic and everything about when he first signed. But I didn't quite realize how good he was with the ball at his feet and the quick feet and everything else. So I think he's actually one who isn't Martinelli and Saka level, but you can almost say is starting quality level. You're not going to be disappointed when you see him on the team sheet. Almost like Ben White and Tomiyasu. You're not going to be disappointed if Tomiyasu's on the team sheet ahead of White. And I think that's a nice position to have with a player coming in. Kiwior, I hope to see him in the Europa League. Just give Gabriel some rest. I think that will be his use for this season. And there's no shame in that. And it looks a shrewd bit of business, but one that we're going to have a bit of time to tell. And we discussed Jorginho in length. We won't go further into that. So, I'm going to go with 7 on the basis we filled the majority of squad gaps. Obviously, given that we were linked with some really high caliber players, I can't go out and, give it one of those really high ratings. And the fact that, to me, there is still a gap on that right wing. And you can even argue striker right now. I'm not concerned about that. I know there are other fans out there who are like, oh, well, what if Eddie gets injured? I just don't think you can plan for all of that in one window. So for me, it's a 7. And obviously, it'd be interesting to reflect back on this in the summer, like depending on where we finish. And if we think actually these signings are what got us over the line. And at the end of the summer window, was doing the business the way we did it this window allow us to get some megastar midfielders. But for me, it's a 7 now, but I'll be interested to reflect back on this.
Yeah, so in the group, I said 7 to start off with, then I dropped it down to a 6. I think given the 2 deals, the big deals that we've missed out on, the first one I wouldn't exactly, well, at the time I said it would potentially harm the club going forward, but I think that's a silly statement to make from my point of view. That's more my disappointment with him ending up at Chelsea, I think. But with the Salcedo deal, it's a difficult one because we can't be expected to rock up to a team like Brighton any team in the Premier League now that's been established in the league for a couple of years to say, yeah, we're Arsenal, we're going to bid 20 million under your reported fee. We're not going to get up to the 80 million that you've reported. You should come down to our level. Because realistically, the club's got to realise now that teams in the Premier League don't need the money. Most of the teams now are quite cake. There's a few pointless bids in there, or reportedly pointless bids in there. But ultimately, if we haven't burnt bridges with Brighton, I think that's the main thing. Because if we're looking at Salcedo and it does come up in the summer, if we would have kept going and burnt bridges with Brighton, then obviously that refocuses the club into looking elsewhere. But it is a disappointment. But the one thing that I will say, in light of both missing out on Mudryk and Caicedo, the club have reacted very well in bringing in other players to fill gaps of what we needed. So on that, I think I can't go higher than a 7. So I'm gonna meet myself in the middle and give this window a 6.5. I'd say. But overall, I do think that it has been a solid window for Arsenal in terms of us and taking Chelsea out of the equation. But just even in the league, I think we've had probably the most solid window out of the league, barring Chelsea.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I lower down have had some good deals. Obviously, I still don't get what Forest are doing. They're spending loads. Great goalkeeper they brought in today, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think certainly at that top, like City are weaker, which is a huge shock to me. Probably the right decision as a club. You know, we've seen big players leave because of what was going on in the club, but you can kind of see writing on the wall there a little bit with this current City squad, and it needs some changing. They're weaker. Newcastle are arguably weaker depth-wise. I know they've got in Gordon, but they've lost a few players who have been playing a few games, like Shelby. United, I think they're marginally stronger. They've got the backup striker, and I think Sabitzer is an upgrade on Eriksen, although obviously losing Eriksen is a big blow to them. And I don't. Chelsea on paper look an absolute mega team, but obviously we know that doesn't always translate well to pitch and results, particularly short term. So yeah, obviously it does give me confidence going forward that we've addressed these issues. And as you said, we didn't get a Vlahovic saga with no alternatives this time round. So, you know, once again, clubs learned a lesson along with, as I said earlier, giving the shorter contracts to the older players. So, yeah, club's in good shape, team's in good shape, and hopefully we've done enough to push us over that line.
Okay, that.
Yeah, lovely. Right, moving on to the weekend. Everton, new manager in Sean Dyche, an old Arsenal nemesis, so to speak, with his Burnley side. How do you think we go? How do you think we line up? And what do you think the outcome will be?
We've had a week to rest in terms of the whole squad. Some of our starting 11 players have had 2 weeks to rest. So we're going, you know, we're back to our full strength. Zinchenko, Martinelli, Nketiah, Saka, Partey, like that's all reported. His rib injury's all right. So I don't see any changes from what we consider the usual lineup. Dyche, as good as he is at organising, will not organise this Everton squad in a week. They are too much of a shambles. They've lost Gordon. Gallagher rejected them. They're a mess. And yeah, we're going to roll them over in our sleep. I think we're looking at a big win here. I'm going 4-0.
Yeah, we're due a win. We haven't had one since Nottingham Forest, I want to say. I think. Yeah, I can't really add too much more to that. Same team. Maybe the surprise is Trossard comes in for Martinelli if Mikel Arteta likes what he sees. But it's going to be the same team, I think, with Martinelli back on the left. And if by somehow Everton get their organisation together and make it difficult for us, maybe. But nah, I see it going our way. So I will probably go. We've had some good 3-0s away from home. So 3-0 with a clean sheet.
Yeah, no, both point's very valid, and I agree completely. I don't think Everton have got the organisation in to deal with us as of yet. I think, given if we was to go 2-0, 3-0, I think we'll see raft of changes. So Vieira, Odegaard, Gabriel getting a rest, Partey, and Jorginho. If Smith Rowe's available, then I think he'll come in at some point. But I think that we might, as controversial this might sound, I think that we might give Saka a rest and start Trossard out on the right hand side there. Just purely as well, because we know what Everton's about, and they like to boot the living daylights out of the front three. So I think it might be a case of giving Saka a bit of a break in this one, and then just going on with the rest of the side. But yeah, I think 3, 4, maybe 5. It's one of them ones where it's like, who knows? But I think that it's going to be a thumping one way or another.
Just touching on Chelsea, they're still going for Enzo, so nothing's happened. Fab's just tweeted now that nothing's been concluded, so hopefully they don't get him. Actually, that's what I'm hoping for. But let's see.
Yeah, no, definitely be an interesting one come the end of the window. Just before we depart, just want to touch on Mohamed Elneny. Reports come out saying that we're going to offer him a 1-year deal. I can kind of see the logic with that, considering he's a well-liked member of the team. He's been with us through thick and thin. Yeah, he's always been somebody who doesn't complain. There's only been, doesn't complain. There's only been that one interview where he's basically told the fans to get on board with him and support him, which is fair play. But potentially another ACL. He's out for a long period of time. It's very interesting to see a 1-year contract talk as he winds down his contract, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it, particularly in the wake of signing Jorginho on an 18-month deal, and then obviously, we're looking at 1 or 2 midfielders coming in the summer. It's just hard to see where Elneny fits in. Obviously, we know that he doesn't complain. Whatever role he is in the squad, that's what he'd do. So great character to have around. I've seen some people say, mate, it's just a classy club thing to do to, keep him going fit and rehab and all that. I'm torn on that. I do love that aspect of the club sometimes, but I don't see why we couldn't support him without giving a new contract. So yeah, I think interesting. I want to see how it plays out. I'm not currently sure what to make of it. Because it does seem like next season, playing time wise, he's kind of competing with Jorginho for a 3rd choice spot. Yeah, so I'm not sure where to go with that one yet, but interesting one to see how that develops.
Yeah, let's see. I think his best feature was his availability, but I think midfield is going to be a huge investment from us in the summer. If we're getting if we are going for 2 players in that area, he's just going to go further and further down. If he's cool with it, and the financials are all right, and it doesn't hurt us in any way, then he might be useful for those Champions League group games or League Cup or whatever. But yeah, let's see. Time will tell.
You know what? I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball out here. I think with Elneny, with this if it's reported the same thing, I think that probably could be his career over and done. We know that he is doing his coaching badges at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if this 1-year extension has a coaching clause in it as well. A bit like a player coach, and he maybe joins Arteta's backroom staff. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that develops with him. And because he's what now, 32, 33, is he? No, 31, 31, 32.
He's old.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Right,
We're all
right.
old.
Let's stop that, okay? Because being 33 myself, I don't want to classify myself in that realm.
Join that gang in December.
So yeah, we're a young old, but not old, all right?
Yeah, it's athlete old, not old.
Yeah, no, exactly that. All right, boys. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. As people are well aware, we're back up and running on a weekly basis. Yeah, weekly basis. So if they can come join us over on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're more than open for conversation with you guys. So if you can put comments into the chat in future episodes. Unfortunately, what the platform that we're streaming on doesn't allow for Twitter comments, unfortunately. But it's an exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, and I think going into Everton, as we said, big win. So let's pray for that. So for myself, Daily Goon Sam, thank you very much for joining. For Jake, thank you for joining us, sir. And again for MJ, as you can see, both handles there, Daily Goon and Jake, and then at MJ_Anwar_, and you'll find us on Twitter. So yeah, thank you very much, and good night.